Hey gang, it's Squill, and this is Fionna and Cake Episode 3. As the title would suggest, Cake the Cat is centered around the last of the three main characters, that being Cake. Though Fionna and Simon are both prominently featured in here. Cake the Cat opens up on an adult Finn and Jake adventure. It's a little weird that Finn has the Jake tattoo here, despite Jake still being alive. My headcanon is that this is an alternate universe in which Jake did die and Finn got the tattoo, but somehow Jake was revived. I guess it's also entirely possible that Finn got the tattoo for reasons unrelated to Jake's death, but I never really liked that interpretation. I loved seeing Finn and Jake form the Jake suit again, it was so cool. Despite how short it is, you can really feel Finn and Jake's brotherly bond within this scene. They're very sweet, makes me kinda nostalgic for classic Finn and Jake adventures. The scene eventually pans out to reveal that Prismo was the one watching it the whole time. Despite not getting a single line of dialogue until his titular episode, it's still clear based on his appearance that Jake's death probably sent him into a depressive spiral. Jake was the only mortal being, that we know of at least, that Prismo was friends with, and yet Prismo probably had a closer bond to him than any of the other cosmic beings. I also don't think it's too much of a stretch to headcanon that Prismo probably had romantic feelings towards Jake. Anyways, the episode proper opens up where Fionna Campbell left off, with Fionna's immediate reaction to Cake disappearing. I plan to circle back to these Fionna scenes later on in the review, but for right now, I just want to say that Ice Queen was totally robbed of screen time. It really is a bummer that this is her only scene in the entire series. After this, we get a follow-up to the Simon Petrikov cliffhanger. I love how, even after gaining the ability to talk, Cake is still just treated as a regular house cat, with the constant clawing and jumping around. It's a great way to set her apart from Jake, who the show only occasionally treated as a normal dog, usually just for a joke. Cake runs outside and is greeted with a bunch of funky future humans. Hey look, a Minerva bot. There's actually a full deleted scene with Cake and the Minerva bot. Kinda wish it was in the actual episode, it would've been cute. This episode also gives us an Ice Thing cameo. Another character I was kinda disappointed we didn't see more of. Cake even said she wanted to go to the Ice Kingdom, which made me believe we'd be getting more Ice Thing. Although a character we do get to spend more time with is the squirrel from Up a Tree. Such a random character to bring back, but it's really funny that they did. I love the way they brought back his yes but also no speech pattern. We also see the rest of the Up a Tree gang return, though I wonder what's up with this squirrel here. I wonder if Dr. Gross has anything to do with it. I've heard some people say the scene was too gratuitous, but I don't really see how it's more gory than what we got last episode. I suppose now's about time I discuss Cake herself some more. I think the episode does a good job setting up Cake's arc for the rest of the series. Her desire to be independent from Fionna. Giving Cake a bit of resentment towards Fionna is another great way to set them apart from Finn and Jake, who were pretty much almost always on the same page. Cake is definitely also the funniest of the three main characters. Her comedy especially shines in the alternate universe episodes. It's also clever how they let her experiment a bit with shapeshifting before actually gaining the ability on her own. That being said, I do think that Cake's story in this one does drag a little bit. There's definitely fun to be had here, and I wouldn't call it boring by any means, though it's definitely not as engaging as Simon or Fionna's plots. I really like the song though, Cake on the Loose is great. It's the second of Rebecca Sugar's 2 songs in this miniseries, and is much more Broadway than Part of the Madness. Definitely feels more Steven Universe-y than Adventure Time, but I'm not complaining at all. As I mentioned earlier, I find both of the subplots in this episode to be far more engaging than Cake's storyline. Simon doesn't get a ton of screen time in this episode, but what we do get of him is great. I love just how cold he is towards Choose Goose. Simon's scenes in this episode in general have a very ominous mood to them that I really like. As for the Fionna side of the episode, I find it very sweet just how much she cares about getting Cake back. Her being super tired made for some great comedy. It was also nice to see her interact with the other Fionna and Cake characters one last time. I also love the scene where Fionna enters the portal. The music here is so good. But the scene where Simon meets Fionna is probably my favorite in the whole episode. Tom Kenny's performance here as Simon's having a mental breakdown is impeccable. It's seriously beyond words just how much Tom Kenny put into this character. He seriously deserves, like, every award ever. After that scene, Fionna meets Astrid, who is able to track Cake. Astrid gets a bit more to do here than in Simon Petrikov, but I still don't really have any strong feelings towards her. This episode also marks her final speaking role. Fionna beating up all these random citizens is very funny, but also does a great job setting up her arc of needing to be less reckless. Love this random banana guard appearance. The episode ends on another cliffhanger as Fionna and Cake are beamed away by Prismo. As you can probably tell just by how short this review is, Cake the Cat isn't really an episode I have a ton to say about, but I still liked it. I think it was a good idea to give Cake her own solo adventure separate from Fionna to help define her character. I think it's really fun how a good chunk of this episode is basically just a sequel to Up a Tree. But as I said before, Fionna and Simon are definitely the more interesting aspects of this episode. Cake the Cat is probably the least memorable out of all the Fionna and Cake episodes, but that really speaks more to the quality of the miniseries as a whole than this episode specifically. So yeah, apologies for this review being so short, I just didn't have a lot to say about this one. But thankfully, next episode should give us more to talk about. Please let me know your thoughts on Cake the Cat in the comments. Squill out.